Hi, my name is Erin Carl, and I'm the owner of Analytical Grammar. Have you struggled at all with where to place prepositional phrases on a diagram when doing our program? You're not alone, and so I'm making this video to help you along. Now, all the information I'm about to give you is in the book. It's just not all in one place, and so sometimes it's easier when it's all sort of spelled out. So let's first talk about what a prepositional phrase is. It's a modifier. It either acts like an adjective or it acts like an adverb. And so the same analytical thinking steps that we use to figure out whether something is an adjective or whether something is an adverb are the same things that we would use for prepositional phrases. So I have a series of 3 steps that I use in order in my head to try to figure out what's going on with a prepositional phrase. The first step is to ask the questions. Now, we taught early on that an adjective will tell us which about a noun. And an adjectival prepositional phrase, or a prepositional phrase that acts like an adjective, will also tell us which about a noun. Now, if it's adverbial and acts like an adverb, it will tell us how, when, where, or why about a verb. Most of the time, it'll be pretty clear. In 1992, I graduated high school. Well, in 1992 is a prepositional phrase that tells me when I graduated, so it's pretty obvious that if I were to diagram that sentence, in 1992 would be diagrammed off of the verb. But sometimes it's not quite so clear, and so in that case, we would go on to a second step. That test is the move it around test. It works much like the same thing that we would do with an adverb. So if you can move a prepositional phrase to multiple places in a sentence without changing the meaning, that's usually indicative of a prepositional phrase that's modifying the verb. So if you can move it around without changing the meaning, and that's important, you're probably going to be looking at a prepositional phrase that modifies the verb. But sometimes that's not quite clear either. And if that's the case, then we're going to go to our third test. Now, this is described on the second page of your adverbs notes near the bottom. What you're going to do is take the words that you think the prepositional phrase modifies, and you're going to read them together with the prepositional phrase. And whichever one flows off the tongue a little better is usually the word that the prepositional phrase modifies. Here's an example. There is a sentence that says, he finally chose the ministry as his profession. Now, some people say that as his profession should be modified off of ministry. However, if that were the case, it would tell us which ministry. And I don't see the argument that it does. Now, we could move it around the sentence. As his profession, he chose the ministry, or he chose as his profession the ministry. Both of those make sense to me, and I don't see how they would change the meaning. But let's go ahead and try our read it together test. So we're going to take the word chose and the word ministry. Chose as his profession or ministry as his profession? See, I think chose as his profession sounds much more normal. It flows. So my argument would be that as his profession goes off of the verb in that sentence. Now, sometimes you might differ from the key. And in fact, we even tell you on one of the teacher keys in analytical grammar that if your student comes to you with an analytical argument for differing from the teacher key, as long as that seems like a viable argument to you, I am fine if you give them the point, because sometimes it really is up for debate. The beautiful thing about grammar is most of it is pretty cut and dried, but there are things that are arguable, and prepositional phrase placement sometimes is one of them. I'll give you an example. There is a sentence that says, the crowds at the Lincoln Memorial joyfully received him, something like that. Now, we in the key have the crowds at the Lincoln Memorial with at the Lincoln Memorial modifying the noun crowds, telling us which crowds, the crowds at the Lincoln Memorial versus the crowds at the Washington Monument. However, I have had students who have argued that at the Lincoln Memorial tells me where he was received. And you know what? I buy that. And if a student comes to me with that type of argument, I would give them the point. Don't feel bad about doing that. We include those sentences on purpose because we want the kids to think. If all of the sentences were so completely cut and dried and easy to understand that there were never going to be sentences that differed from the key and your student, that's a whole lot less thinking our students are going to be doing, and we want them thinking. I hope this helps. If you have further questions, you can always reach us on our contact form on our website at analyticalgrammar.com, or come join us on Facebook, Twitter, and Pinterest. Just search for Analytical Grammar and you'll find us. Thanks so much. Bye.